English Campfire.
I'm your host, and today we're jumping right into a feeling that, well, I think we all know a little too well.
And I'm your resident expert, ready to unpack the psychology behind why we feel that way.
Right. So picture this for a second. It's 5 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. The sun is just, starting to dip. The sky is still light. Maybe you're wrapping up some weekend chores or just sitting on the couch. But then it hits you.
Oh, yeah. That feeling.
It's this heavy, physical, sinking feeling right in the center of your chest.
Yeah.
I mean, the weekend isn't technically over yet.
Right. Technically.
But mentally.
Yeah.
You're already gone. You're already bracing yourself at your desk.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt your weekend end before the calendar actually says it's over?
It is a very specific, almost suffocating atmospheric pressure, isn't it?
Suffocating is the perfect word for it.
Yeah, the air in the room actually feels heavier when that Sunday evening clock strikes 5.
Yeah.
It's a universal enough experience that we've basically normalized giving up the last 10 hours of our freedom.
We really have. And today, for this deep dive, we are going straight into the heart of that shadow.
I love that. The shadow of Sunday.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack our modern relationship with work, with burnout, and how we actually find meaning, or, lose it entirely, in the everyday grind.
Which is so easy to do.
So easy. We're going to look at some fascinating psychological research and apply it to a case study from our sources that honestly feels a little too relatable for comfort. It's the story of a guy named James.
Yeah, James. He's a 34-year-old account manager at a marketing agency in Chicago.
Okay.
And his story is the perfect lens for this deep dive precisely because his life isn't defined by some massive cinematic tragedy.
Right. There's no dramatic explosion.
Exactly. No catastrophic failure at work. Instead, what he's dealing with is that quiet, chronic exhaustion that plagues, well, so many modern workers. It's the slow leak rather than the blown tire.
The slow leak. Okay, let's unpack this. Because James is dealing with something so common, it's basically a cultural touchstone at this point, right? The Sunday scaries.
Oh, absolutely.
But when we look at the psychological literature, we aren't just talking about being a little bummed out that the weekend is over. It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. We really need to draw a hard line between worry and dread.
Okay, what's the difference?
Because they operate in completely different parts of the brain. Worry is cognitive. It's your prefrontal cortex trying to solve a problem.
Like, how am I going to finish that presentation by noon?
Right, exactly. But dread is physiological. It is a heavy bodily fear about the future.
Oh, bodily fear.
Yeah, so when we talk about the Sunday scaries, we are talking about dread. Your amygdala is essentially time traveling to Monday morning.
Time traveling. I like that.
And it decides there is a predator waiting for you there. So it floods your system with cortisol on Sunday afternoon.
Unbelievable.
It's the anticipation of Monday causing actual measurable discomfort in your body today.
So your brain is basically pre-gaming the stress.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And we see this play out in James's evening. The notes show he makes dinner. He scrolls mindlessly on his phone. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
He gets into bed at 10, but he can't sleep until midnight. His body is physically bracing for an impact that is still hours away.
Right.
But if the body is marinating in cortisol on Sunday, what does that actually look like when the alarm finally goes off on Monday?
Well, that's where the survival mechanisms kick in. The alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m., and James does what so many people do. He just stares at the ceiling for 6 minutes.
Just paralyzed.
Yeah, and those 6 minutes are the last moments of conscious presence he has, because after that, the routine takes over. Coffee, shower, email, the 7.45 train.
But wait, routines are generally pitched to us as a good thing, right? I mean, every productivity book tells you to build a bulletproof morning routine.
They are biologically efficient, yes. Neurologically speaking, routines are processed by the basal ganglia.
Which is what exactly?
It's a deeper, more primal part of the brain. Routines stabilize us, and they drastically reduce decision fatigue. Your brain consumes a massive amount of energy, and it doesn't want to burn calories deciding, how to brew coffee or what route to walk to the train station.
Right, it wants to save that energy for the marketing agency.
Exactly. But the dark side of that efficiency is that rigid routines can trap us on autopilot.
Okay, so when you say autopilot, you mean like disassociating from the present moment.
Yes.
Like you're physically in the shower washing your hair, but mentally you're 3 hours in the future arguing with your boss in a hypothetical meeting.
We all do that. You are going through the motions without any sensory engagement. And when you live your entire work week on autopilot, you stop registering the nuance of your own life.
Which has to take a toll.
It does. It leads to a very specific, insidious flavor of burnout. Notice that James isn't having a dramatic breakdown.
Right, he isn't throwing his laptop out a window.
No, but the research points to 3 classic markers of burnout. You have emotional depletion, a subtle but growing cynicism, and a fundamental loss of the capacity to care.
Wow.
He is operating completely close to empty.
You know, it makes me think of a smartphone when the battery drops below 20%.
Oh, I like this.
You get that little prompt asking if you want to switch to low power mode, right?
Yep.
And when you do, the phone technically still works. You can make calls, you can send texts, but the screen dims. It stops fetching data in the background.
Right, all the fun stuff turns off.
Exactly. All the visually appealing animations, all the background apps that make the phone vibrant and interesting, they all get shut down just so the device can survive until the end of the day.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it.
When you're dealing with that level of burnout and living on autopilot, you are essentially a human being forced into low power mode. You're functioning, sure. You're answering the emails. But the color of life is completely muted.
All the cognitive resources that would normally be used for curiosity or empathy or joy, they're just shut down to conserve energy for basic survival.
It's bleak.
It is. And James's low power mode is exactly what makes the events of this particular Monday morning so illuminating. Because an external force suddenly interrupts that routine.
Yes. The dreaded transit delay.
The worst.
The absolute worst nightmare for someone already vibrating with anxiety. So what exactly happens on his commute?
Well, James gets on his usual 7.45 train, bracing for the usual grind. But midway through the trip, the train just stops.
Oh, no.
An announcement comes over the speaker signal problems. They are going to be held for 15 to 20 minutes.
I can hear the collective, agonizing groan of the commuter car from here. Every single person checking their watch.
Totally. But for James, being physically trapped actually forces a neurological reset. He's bumped out of his basal ganglia and forced back into conscious awareness.
Because the routine is broken.
Exactly. In the silence of that delayed train with nowhere to go and, no emails he can urgently fix, he realizes something profound about his baseline state.
Which is?
He realizes he has spent most of his adult life utterly distracted.
And we should clarify, not distracted by anything enjoyable. Yeah. It's not like he's daydreaming about a vacation to Italy.
Oh, no. He is distracted by the low-level ambient noise of constantly preparing for the next thing. This is what psychologists refer to as being trapped in the default mode network.
Okay.
He is never actually in the moment. He is always mentally 15 minutes ahead of his physical body, bracing for the next crisis.
But because the train has stopped.
He cannot move forward in space or time. He just has to sit there. And eventually he ends up having a conversation with the woman sitting next to him.
Who is she? Does he know her?
A total stranger named Clara. She's a physical therapist, and she happens to be reading a book about color theory.
Random, but okay.
Right. But for 18 minutes, they just talk. Not about work, not about productivity, not about the delay. It's just a genuine, low-stakes human connection about how different colors affect human psychology.
It's amazing how a conversation about something completely irrelevant to your immediate problems can act like a pressure valve.
It really can.
But, reality has to set in eventually. The train starts moving. He has to actually go to the office.
Yeah.
If he's on a 7.45 train that got delayed by 20 minutes, plus the walk, what time does he actually get to his desk?
He walks in at 9:11 a.m.
Oh, wow. In the agency world, walking in after 9 feels like a cardinal sin. You're practically waiting for the firing squad.
He is fully expecting fire and brimstone. He's sweating, his heart rate is up. He rushes to his manager, Priya, ready to apologize for missing the morning client handoff.
And what does she say?
Priya just looks up from her monitor and says, "Oh, there you are. The campaign thing sorted itself out. Kevin handled it."
I can imagine the whiplash of that moment. You've spent hours internally agonizing over catastrophe that didn't even happen.
It is a massive disruption to James's entire worldview.
Yeah.
Because his worldview has been heavily structured by hustle culture.
Right. Hustle culture is this pervasive belief that constant busyness and unrelenting productivity are directly tied to your personal worth. It equates your value as a human being with how indispensable you are at work.
Almost to the point where anxiety itself becomes a badge of honor.
Exactly.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because we toss the term hustle culture around a lot as this purely toxic illusion. But let's be real here. James works at a competitive marketing agency in a major city.
True.
He is likely billed by the hour. Client crises are real. If he just floats in late every day talking about color theory and assuming Kevin will fix everything, he's going to get fired.
Fair point.
So isn't a certain amount of this hustle actually just the baseline requirement for his job? Where is the line between actual required professional ambition and this toxic disconnection you're talking about?
That is the crucial distinction to make. Healthy professional ambition is directional. It has a purpose, it involves actual output, and crucially, it allows for periods of rest.
You are striving toward a goal, but your identity is not entirely consumed by the struggle. Toxic hustle culture, on the other hand, isn't about the output. It's about the performance of stress.
The performance of stress. Say more about that.
James had unconsciously absorbed the idea that his anxiety, his rushing, and his dread were the glue holding his team together. He believed that if he wasn't suffering, he wasn't contributing.
Oh, man.
That is deep. So when he arrives late and discovers that Kevin just calmly handled the morning crisis without him, it shatters that illusion. The company didn't go bankrupt. The client didn't fire them.
It proves that his suffering wasn't actually a requirement for the work to get done.
Exactly. The work got done without his dread. And this brings James to a psychological threshold.
What's a threshold?
A threshold is a boundary between two states of being. He stands there in his office and has this stark, undeniable realization. He has been filling his mornings with intense physiological panic over situations that, more often than not, resolve themselves. He has been suffering on purpose for zero practical benefit.
Which is such a wild realization to have on a random Monday morning. It totally strips away the illusion of control.
It does.
But, it brings up a totally new, almost hardo problem for James. Once that unexpected interruption of the train delay proves to him that his baseline anxiety was mostly optional, what does he actually do with that newly freed mental space?
Right.
If he's not dreading the day, how is he supposed to experience it?
And this is where the research on behavioral change gets really practical. Because by Wednesday of that same week, James hasn't quit his job.
Good, because bills.
Right. He hasn't moved to an ashram or dramatically told off his boss. He is in the exact same corporate environment, but he is interacting with it completely differently. He starts applying the mechanics of mindfulness.
And I think mindful is one of those words that gets thrown around so much, it almost loses its meaning.
It really does.
People hear it, and they immediately picture sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat trying to empty their brain, which frankly sounds impossible in a bustling marketing agency.
The clinical definition of mindfulness doesn't require any of that. At its core, mindfulness is simply the act of noticing reality without judgment.
Noticing reality.
Yes, it is the direct antidote to autopilot. Autopilot is reacting to assumptions. Mindfulness is responding to actual data.
So what does that look like for James?
James starts making deliberate, conscious choices to engage his senses. He stops grabbing the stale instant coffee pod and takes the extra 3 minutes to brew a real pour-over.
Okay, small change.
Right. He makes a deliberate choice to sit by the window and look at the actual weather. He puts his phone in his bag for the first 2 hours of the workday to physically remove the temptation of digital distraction.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The notes mention he uses a psychological tool called reframing.
Yes.
He literally shifts how he views the concept of his schedule. Instead of seeing Monday morning as, the tragic loss of my weekend freedom, he reframes it as the start of a new blank slate week.
It sounds incredibly simple, almost too simplistic to actually work. But cognitive reframing is a highly effective, evidence-based technique used in cognitive behavioral therapy.
How does it work?
It relies on neuroplasticity. You aren't changing the objective facts of your situation. You are changing the neural pathways your brain uses to interpret those facts.
That's like having a camera. Reframing isn't about changing the landscape you're photographing.
Oh, I love a camera analogy.
Right. The mountain is still the mountain. The office is still the office. The emails still have to be answered. Reframing is about swapping out the lens.
Yes.
If you spend your whole life looking through a tight macro lens that is hyper-focused on one stressful email or one annoying comment from a boss, well, that fills your entire frame.
It's all you see.
But if you swap that out for a wide-angle lens, the subject looks entirely different. You see the context, you see the light, you see the margins around the stress. James's job is exactly the same. His workload hasn't decreased by a single project, but his focal point has completely shifted.
That is a brilliant analogy because swapping that lens naturally changes his pace. When you are looking through that tight, hyper-anxious macro lens, Everything feels like an emergency. You rush.
You're always putting out fires.
But with the wide-angle lens, James realized he was no longer required to meet an artificial panic. He stopped filling every quiet moment, like walking to the bathroom or waiting for a file to download, with the noise of his own anxiety.
Wow.
He allowed himself to move at the speed of the actual work rather than the speed of his dread.
So we have this subtle internal revolution happening from Monday to Thursday. But does anyone on the outside actually notice? Does it change anything about how he is perceived at the agency?
It culminates on Friday. It's Friday afternoon, and his manager, Priya, stops by his desk to review some accounts. And before she walks away, she just pauses and says, "You seem different this week."
I love that. She can't quite put her finger on it, but the energy has shifted.
It is proof that our internal states inevitably broadcast outwardly. People can feel when you are in low power mode, and they can feel when you are fully online.
Yeah. James's shifted perspective had naturally cultivated a state of gratitude. And I want to be very careful with that word because just like with mindfulness, this wasn't forced, toxic positivity.
Right. He isn't brainwashing himself into thinking he loves answering client emails at 4 p.m. on a Friday.
Exactly. He's not standing in front of a mirror reciting affirmations. He is experiencing genuine appreciation for tangible, real things.
Like what?
He is grateful for that 18-minute chat with Claire on the train because it gave him a hit of actual human connection and dopamine. He is grateful for the taste of the coffee. He is genuinely grateful that he works with a capable team where someone like Kevin can handle a crisis without him having to micromanage it.
Which takes a lot of humility, honestly, to admit that you aren't the sole pillar holding the sky up.
It does. And the most crucial step he took to reach that point was that he finally acknowledged the dread.
He looked the Sunday scaries right in the eye instead of just trying to numb out on his phone. By consciously acknowledging that the dread was sitting right there in his chest, he took away its power, he analyzed it, and he realized its absolute uselessness.
It's just a false alarm.
Completely.
Right.
The dread hadn't protected him from a single bad thing at work. It hadn't made his campaigns more successful. It hadn't made Priya respect him more. All that physical, exhausting fear had ever done was rob him of his Sundays.
There is such a beautiful irony in James's realization at the end of the week. When Priya asks him what's different, when she points out that his whole vibe has changed, he doesn't launch into a grand philosophical monologue.
Nope.
He doesn't start quoting productivity gurus or explaining cognitive behavioral therapy. He just looks at her and says, I think I just started paying attention.
It is the ultimate, simplest antidote to living on autopilot. Just paying attention to what is actually happening right now in the room you are physically in, rather than the catastrophe your brain is inventing for tomorrow.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think the core takeaway from James's week is incredibly liberating. Escaping burnout and defeating the Sunday scaries doesn't always require blowing up your life.
That's the good news.
You don't have to quit your corporate job, sell all your possessions, and move to a cabin in the woods to find peace. I mean, if you have a cabin, good for you.
Send us an invite.
But for most of us, navigating the modern grind is about crossing a mental threshold. It's about recognizing when your brain has forced you into low-power mode. It's about ditching the autopilot, stepping out of the performative hustle, and making very small, deliberate choices about exactly where you focus your lens.
And to build on James's realization about his anxiety, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think about the dread or the worry you use to brace yourself for a difficult task. Maybe it's a tough workday or a complicated conversation with a partner. We often hold on to that anxiety like it's a protective shield, as if worrying about a future event enough will somehow soften the blow or prevent it from happening.
We really do think it keeps us safe.
But if that dread isn't actually protecting you from the work, if the work is going to happen, regardless of how much you suffer beforehand, what is that dread quietly costing you in the meantime?
It is a question worth asking yourself. Especially the next time Sunday rolls around, the clock strikes 5, the light starts to change in your living room, and you feel that familiar, heavy pressure trying to creep into your chest. Before you let it pull you out of your life and into Monday morning, remember, you still have the rest of the weekend. Just pay attention to it.